The title of this audiobook is called Truth, The Path to Christ-like Conscious Living. It is being freely distributed and shared out of love and service to mankind. Please forward this to our brothers and sisters around the world. This book was authored by Kathleen H. Nelson and was copyrighted February 2015. Note: commercial use of this book for profit is prohibited without the expressed permission of this author. Contact information: DivineTruthPath.com. About this book. You might mistakenly think that the title of this book is akin to another scholarly rendition of a Bible study. The opposite is true. The age of Aquarius, the flashlight, is demanding that the truth about traditional, organized religion and governments be exposed. People are awakening exponentially throughout the world. The origin of dysfunctional human behavior has set in motion the spiritual evolution many are seeking. We all have access to this truth. More importantly, we all have a choice to make in this life, whether to embrace the divine, or to continue down the path of self-delusion, led by our ego minds. Christ-like conscious living boils down to knowing we have disconnected from God, by virtue of choice, and further, knowing our individual destiny is to find our way back to our Creator. It has very little to do with religion, which has distorted the truth. Once we have awareness, by the grace of God, our thinking patterns must change. We can't go back. The truth requires it. This book discloses it. We are all in Earth School. I do not hold myself out as a religious scholar, nor am I seeking to be. My heart tells me that I am being guided to encourage men and women to overcome their darkness by knowing the truth. I pray that all the words expressed reflect this intention. My life experiences resemble colorful, mosaic art, as does this book. The content does not represent anything claiming to be new, because the truth is, nothing is new. Everything has always been. Most of us would agree that organized religions, governments, and exploiters of power have deceived us, as we have deceived ourselves. We have willingly embraced fear, hence the lie from the oppressors, thus deluding ourselves. The truth is, truth can no longer be hidden. The world is now experiencing the age of Aquarius. Darkness will no longer be tolerated. World consciousness, with the grease of technology, will ultimately shift like we have never experienced it. Have you noticed that there seems to be an increase of polarization in the world? The divide, us, against them mentality, has condoned and escalated disputes. Men against women, blacks against whites, religion against religion, rich against poor, this country against that country, and so on and so forth. The list is endless. This has only led to increasing political conflicts, abuses to humanity, and wars with no resolution in sight. Indeed, we have created instability in our environment, economy, and social structure, not to mention what this behavior has done to our own essence. Confrontation breeds fear, which generates more lies feeding upon itself, much like a fusion reactor. The sobering fact is that this painful polarizing force is the catalyst of humanity's evolution. The good news is, no one will be able to hide from the intentional disclosure of truth. For those of us who are alive during this time of great transformation, we will see amazing and dramatic shifts in all thoughts and actions. More humans across the planet will, by choice, embrace Christ-like consciousness, loving God and loving others. Throughout the following pages, I tell of some personal events that have occurred in my life's journey, not to highlight myself as special in any way, but to relate closer to the readers. In reflection, this book is my testimony of sorts. Please keep an open heart and mind, as some content put forth may be unsettling. I use the words God, my Maker, the Beloved, our Creator, the Source, our Divine, etc., interchangeably, not to offend those who have suffered the wrath of organized religion gone awry, but as an honest attempt to describe our Creator, albeit limited human expressions. Finally, I pray that these writings ultimately stimulate deep thought and personal metamorphosis as best articulated by the insightful poet, Rumi. Quote, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I am changing myself." End quote. The introduction. In the summer of 2013, I experienced a profound dream. In my mind's eye, I am walking into a body of clear blue water with waves splashing about. There were several bathers in close proximity of each other, off to my right as I waded in. Now floating, my body was being carried by the strong, unseen current. In short order I arrived, bumping up against a cluster of bathers. I realized that I had no desire to be swept away with the rest. I resisted, and swam further out and away, until I relaxed in the smooth salty sea. Enjoying the calmness and solitude of the moment, my eyes looked down, directly at the water's surface in front of me. There, off the sun's sparkling reflection, was a beautiful gold ring in the shape and size of a round dinner plate. The ring wrapped around golden eagle, whose magnificent outstretched wings and clawed feet were grasping the inside. The majestic head, pure white, was turned to show the left profile presenting the sculptured golden beak. The exquisite details of the feathers were so bold, so striking. I then looked up into the infinite sky and saw the same amazing image, only much larger, hovering directly over me. I was overwhelmed. Suddenly, I felt my hands involuntarily cupping together, lifting out of the water, face up, as if to catch something. The image descended slowly from the sky, becoming smaller and smaller, as it came closer and closer. Finally it settled on my open, receiving hands. I stared at it, and heard the following message within. "Would you be willing to show?" My inner voice responded. "Oh, that could be interesting." Me? I did not resist or dismiss a request. However, when I woke from the dream, I could not recall what the requester was asking me to show. Out of urgency and frustration, I meditated and prayed for weeks, in a conscious effort to know what I was being asked. Soon after, I began to feel a strong sense to write, not knowing what I was to write about. Later, it was apparent that I was to write a book. Originally, I thought it was to be about women's worth issues, a subject I am passionate about. However, as time went by, the subject of these writings were revealed through several synchronicities. I was to write about divine disconnection, the fallen world, choice, the real war, and Christ-like consciousness. Without a doubt, I have been led to share these words, as an intention to help others see their life's obstacles differently, and thus begin their own healing. I pray that these writings, seemingly a covenant I have entered into, reflect the intention of the Beloved. I sincerely hope that those who are seeking find wisdom, peace, and love in these words. If you are thirsty for that, you may find the messages within thought-provoking, or even life-changing. Some may find these concepts disturbing, or illuminating. In any case, from a philosophical, psychological and spiritual perspective, there is much to chew over. Chapter 1, The Ultimate Question. Just when you succumb to the belief that the frozen abyss shall never thaw, the soul finds a way to ignite a fire deep within the belly of our innermost core. Astrologists proclaim that it is the transits, the planets aligning just so, that move through the shadows and lessons caused by Saturn. Mystics say, it is an intervention by the enlightened ones from another dimension, that enables the penetration of light. Frankly, this question is so much more intriguing. Have you ever asked why you are here on this earth? Why am I here? I can remember asking that as if upon birth, I innately knew I came from somewhere else. I don't know if Mom was screaming, and pushing, or giving sleep-induced birth, but I do remember my inner voice asking one question, which has driven my life's path ever since. Why am I here? What a blessing this has been. What a curse it can be. One thing is for sure, I have never been able to run or hide from it. It's like dog dung on the bottom of my shoe, destined to constantly remind me that no matter how hard I scrub it off, I can still smell it. I felt different than most children I knew and played with. I often thought about things kids just don't think or talk about. I remember lying in my bed on a frosty winter's morning, waking up to the sun's rays penetrating through the crack of the window curtain. My gaze was drawn to the sparkling particles floating in the air like fairy dust, seemingly coming from nowhere. I fantasized about the micro-universe, invisible to the naked eye, but ever so present. I thought of all the organisms going about their lives, fulfilling their purpose according to the cosmic blueprint. I knew at an early age there was a great deal more to life than could be seen. I vividly remember attending Bible school at Emmanuel Lutheran Church as a youngster. I so enjoyed singing this wonderful hymnal. Yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. At that young age, cute, naive and gullible, and full of me, I honestly did not know others were suffering, hungry, lonely, and sick. My world was happy. I lived with my loving Swedish grandmother, my father's sister, and my grandfather. My mother, father, brother and I all lived upstairs in the yellow grand Victorian house until I was about 4 years of age. I spent much time downstairs with Grandma. I can still see me running and laughing around the large, oblong, formal dining room table. I had just swiped a freshly made meatball out of a beautifully painted ceramic bowl that just happened to be within my reach. My grandmother, laughing at my animation, enjoyed my performances. In turn, I enjoyed her adoring reactions. Sometimes, the Victrola, displayed in the corner of the dining room, was playing Swedish polkas, which wound me up even more as I galloped around the table. I have many wonderful and fun-filled memories of my early childhood. Shortly after I turned 5, my parents built our home. We moved out of the Grand Victorian and into a modern ranch. Fast forward, at age 13, I saw and experienced a radically different world than my younger years. No longer was the fairy tale Cinderella plaque on my bedroom wall relevant to my world. I endured the fighting, drinking, and the emotional ups and downs of family life that gave me a big dose of reality. It made me sad. My early teen years were very confusing to me. Now, my body decides that I will become a woman fully capable of having a child at age 13. How ridiculous was that, I thought. After all, I was a tomboy with outstanding athletic ability. At 16, I actually wanted to end it all. Needless to say, I did not adapt to my new gender role without major kicking and screaming. As a teenager, I attended confirmation classes at the church. I resisted, but Mother made me go anyway. I was pretty headstrong and rebellious if I didn't get my way, a behavior characteristic looking back that I'm not proud of. But in hindsight, I believe my rebellion facilitated a lot of necessary lessons. I asked a lot of questions at school and at home. I often got in trouble for my inquisitiveness, or as some adults would characterize it, backtalk. Confirmation class was no exception. I asked my teacher the following questions. If God loves us all, why are children hungry and sick? Why do we have wars and kill each other? Of course, no answer was given to soothe my serious attempt to understand God's abundant love. The misery of the world was such a stark contradiction that I couldn't equate it with God's love. So I quit confirmation class with my integrity intact. But I also threw out the baby with the bathwater. My life from then on has been quite a ride. Let me be clear, I am in no way a saint. I have pretty much participated in every dark shadow of the human persona. Conversely, I have likewise received many mystical, healing, spiritual moments. There is one event in my life that I wish to share that changed me forever. After birthing 2 beautiful sons into this world, I resumed participating in running events, tennis and softball. Consequently, I developed a torn meniscus of the left knee. Fortunately, arthroscopic surgery had just been introduced as a way to repair this injury. I was in surgery for 3 hours. While I was in recovery, I remembered floating above my body while in surgery. I saw myself as a light sphere in another realm surrounded by other light spheres. I felt totally accepted and loved beyond description. To this day I can revisit the bliss of it all and feel my heart light up. I remembered hearing my thought expressing, if this is what dying is like, I want to stay here. There were teacher/mother/father presences, distinctly different than the surrounding spheres, but no human gender form per se that I saw. I heard a voice expressing, "You need to go back. You have 2 sons to take care of," was the response to my desire to stay. Without any hesitation whatsoever, I eagerly agreed. There was no rebellion or questioning, only pure acceptance. I felt like a light child being obedient to his light mother/father/teacher, gladly taking the action suggested. There was no command. I felt no fear. I came back to this earthly realm as I was asked. After the surgery was completed, I hesitantly told the doctor as he checked on my recovery progress. The blood drained from his face. After a few moments of dead silence, he composed himself. He said it must have been the drugs that were used to put me under. I just shook it off as a drug-induced hallucination, as the doctor had justifiably explained. I accepted that answer and never brought it up until years later. My life, however, was profoundly changed. I now knew that humans were more than their physical bodies. Even more than that, I now was keenly aware of another realm. I began to see a lot of synchronicity in my life, including a feeling of heightened intuition, and a strong yearning to learn more about the spiritual. My intuition within told me to take extra money to McDonald's as I was preparing to walk over for supper while teaching out of state. There will be someone there who needs it, as I heard what sounded like an inner voice. I acknowledged the request. I stuffed a handful of extra bills into my back jean pocket. I walked into McDonald's on a very cold, November night in Wichita. I was the only patron there. I ordered, picked up my bagged supper, and proceeded to walk back to my hotel room to eat it. To my surprise, just as I was leaving, I noticed an old gray-headed woman with a full cup of steaming hot coffee sitting at a table alone. She was not there when I first entered the establishment, I thought. I sensed she had come in from the cold to warm up, possibly homeless. She wore a tattered, heavy woolen coat, and torn gloves. Her face looked street-worn. As I was walking by, I stopped as if being pulled in by magnetic force. I looked into her eyes. They were soft. I took out the wad of money I had stuck in my back pocket, and handed it to her. "I would like you to have this," I said. Her face lit up. She proceeded to tell me her social security check was not going to come in for another week, and that she had no money left. She thanked me and said she would pay me back. I looked straight into her eyes as if I saw her soul and said, "No, it's not necessary. The money is a gift." I then left. That moment seemed so surreal. I felt the presence of the divine working through me, through my heart. I have no doubts about that. I have had countless encounters throughout my life that have directed me to people and their situations to mitigate sadness or harm. The more I remained open in my heart, the more I found myself in those moments willed by God. I'm very fortunate to know that there is more to life than the body we carry around. We are all light spirits, inhabiting human bodies, in order to have earthly experiences. We are all, as I call it, attending Earth School. It's true. As I grew older, I realized that we all carry past emotional baggage. Many people take up drinking, doing drugs, and other destructive behavior to cover up the pain of ghosts past. It disturbed me to see people stuck in helplessness, as if they were on self-destruct mode. I became aware of many, including me of course, wanting to change the outcome of their situations, but hesitant or not knowing how to change the process. Personally speaking, I was frozen with fear and indecisiveness. My breakthrough came while practicing the yoga of awareness. I realized that my mind, my ego mind, had control over me and I didn't like it. It was a committee, the naysayers in my mind telling me I couldn't commit to the practice, let alone change myself, thus my life. While in my first yoga class, meditating for 11 minutes in easy pose with arms stretched out, motionless and parallel to the floor, a lot of demons came up in my mind. The naysayers relentlessly reminded me of all the initiatives I quit. You quit dance as a child. You quit college. You quit life. You are weak. On and on, the naysayers would stream condescending thoughts through my head. The chatter was constant. Why would it be different now? You're a quitter. All the while my arms were getting heavier and heavier, being pulled lower and lower, to succumb to the unyielding gravity of the earth. The naysayers predicted I would drop my arms in defeat, until I instantly decided to change my thoughts. I was determined to prove them wrong. I envisioned my arms tethered at the wrists, and being held up effortlessly by two beautiful angels. A smile appeared on my previously grimaced face. Suddenly, my arms felt light and supported at the same time. The posture became easy and resistance-free. I smiled and I laughed and the voices stopped. I completed my first Kundalini, Yoga Kriya, a series of postures, breath and sound, completely slaying the naysayers within. I realized, at that moment, how powerful my thoughts are. I also realized how strong my willpower actually is. This self-awareness practice prompted me to look for the common denominator in my past behavior. I soon realized through diligent and devoted meditation and prayer that I was lying to myself, sabotaging my soul's desires, to fully realize my potential. This self-doubt fed my insecurities, keeping me stuck in the same non-productive behavior, driven by poor choices. I then gave myself away in spite of my growth needs and desires. As you know, I am no exception. I have traced my undermining behavior back to my childhood, feeling unloved and abandoned by my father and mother, even though in hindsight they were there for me. I have since realized that my parents passed along self-doubt and worthiness issues to me, which they in turn received from their parents, and so on, through many past generations. Then I was thinking that if I keep going backwards through the past generations of my family tree, to the beginning of time, I end up with Adam and Eve, based on what the Bible puts forth. Presuming that we know the story to be true, we can all say that every family tree started with Adam and Eve. However, if this story is a false creation myth, the end result of handing down dark baggage, from one generation to another, is still relevant to our inherent, historical, and dysfunctional behaviors. What was it about Adam and Eve that put emotional baggage in play for all of us? Why is there so much pain and suffering? Why are we here in this realm? The truth is we all have access to the answer, thus possibilities to change and lift our lives for the better, both individually and collectively. We can start by trying to remember where we come from and where we are going. Do you know? Jesus knew. John, chapter 8, verse 14, Jesus stated, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I am going." Chapter 2, Growing Pains. Our world is currently transitioning, much like a birthing of a baby from its mother's dark womb, into the light of the here and now. In the same arduous way, mankind is leaving the Piscean Age and entering the Age of Aquarius. The Piscean Age condoned dominance over others through fear, ignorance and corruption. Throughout history, governments and yes, organized religions, through their self-serving rules and regulations, have manipulated and controlled the masses. Information and knowledge were purposely withheld, available only to the elite. This exclusivity, us being superior, against them, inferior, perpetuated terrible abuses. Ironically, much of this abuse was carried out in the name of God. Wars, disease, and famine were prevalent. The less than women and their helpless children suffered disproportionately at the hands of the powerful. Yet, History has glorified this behavior as justifiable, and even noble and righteous. Unfortunately, we continue to see this scourge today: the wars, the suicide bombings, the media fighting, the congressional gridlocks, the rapes and murders of the less than gender and helpless children. Simply put, us against them culture. Yogi Bhajan, Kundalini Yoga master, stated the following: God loves one thing, his own nobility. Men have created wars in the name of God. Men have killed people in the name of God. They think they have done great things to please God. But God is never pleased with these men. God is only pleased with those who are noble, compassionate and kind. The Bible Matthew 24 articulates 6 signs that Jesus prophetically stated which signals the end of time as we know it. The following are some: there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. You will hear rumors of wars, nation will rise against nation, because of the increased wickedness. The love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. I am sure we can agree that all of these events are present in our world. Chapter 3, Spiritual Evolution. Whether we are aware of it or not, we are all in the midst of spiritual evolution. Walter Brueggemann, a well-known scripture scholar and author of the book, Spirituality of the Psalms, points out 3 distinct parts of Psalms. Psalms of orientation, affirming and reaffirming tradition, law, and culture. And psalms of disorientation, things not being true about tradition, law and culture. And psalms of reorientation, acquired wisdom, leading to form a new coherent oneness from separateness in faith. This is the process we are all going through. We accept what we have been taught as true, then we find out it's a lie, then we can change if we have the will to do so. Otherwise, we just try to cover up the pain of the lie with more negative behavior. Self-awareness is the key to acquired wisdom. Once we find out the truth, we have no other place to go except to wholeness, if we accept our collective destiny. We are indeed a part of the collective whole. We are not separate, as Chief Seattle so beautifully expressed. Quote, humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but a thread within it. Whatever we do to the web we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. End quote. The glue that binds all this together is our Creator. We can, in fact, willingly choose to connect to our divine source. I challenge you to flip on your heart light. Once the critical, spiritual, energy mass is set in motion, the world, as we know it, will no longer exist. This will happen. This is the good news. This is the Olivet prophecy, Matthew 24. The spiritual metamorphosis is already underway. Chapter 4, The Game Changer. Enter, the Internet, the concept invented by a global collaboration of many scientists and mathematicians in the late 1950s and further morphing into fruition in the 1960s. This ethereal technology subsequently exploded, and has since brought information to anyone on this planet with access to a machine or phone. This amazing technology will allow the Aquarian Age to realize its destiny, to proclaim the truth, and to shed light on deception no matter where it hides and no matter how long it takes. We can validate this with all the uprising we see all over the world. People have found commonality through the Internet. But more important, they can share and organize. The last of the Piscean Age is playing out in front of our eyes. Everywhere the notions of conventional religions and oppressive governments are being challenged. Humanity is no longer accepting the injustices they have endured and witnessed for thousands of years. People are openly expressing their desire to be free, educated, economically self-sufficient and spiritually enlightened with inclusiveness. The light of truth is being spread throughout the world much like mustard seeds blown about by the wind. Matthew, chapter 24, verse 14, Jesus said, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." The Internet, the Greece, is playing a huge part in spreading the news. The powerful are no longer in sole control. Access to information is a life changer. Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying, "Conformity is the enemy of progress, the jailer of freedom." We have the technology, a beautiful creative gift from God, to set ourselves free from conformity, manipulation and control. But in reality, it takes much more than technology breakthroughs. We create, then after the fact think about the ramifications. Or, if we have in fact thought the ripple effect through, we discard the importance of it. For example, nuclear industry, decades later after the invention of this amazing power, can find no solution to neutralize or recycle nuclear waste. Yet, reactors continue to spew out hazardous waste every day. Stockpiling this lethal waste in our precious sacred earth is our only solution to the horrific problem. Technology as we know has certainly made significant strides, but have we? Evidence suggests the answer is disappointing at best. Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by renewing your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing and perfect will." Unfortunately, the same reckless actions, the pattern of this world, continue to be our reality regardless of the improvements made by new technology. Do you ask why that is? More importantly, do you care? Chapter 5, The Human Condition and the Fallen World. I have often wondered why women of the world have been marginalized and dismissed by patriarchal religious societies. This is not my opinion. This fact has been recorded by history in many different forms. However, the importance of this subject has not been taken seriously. Being a female in this realm gives one a unique purview of life on this earth. Certainly Christ, and other Christ-like beings, did not condone abusive behavior. Yet patriarchal religious societies in particular, who purport to embrace Christ-like values, continue to exclude and marginalize women today. Have you ever wondered why that is? This is an oxymoron. Does this sound Christ-like to you? These exclusive, traditional practices have been handed down from one religious patriarchal generation to another. Deceitfully, they have woven into their religious teachings the cultural, dark ways of their making and called them words from God. Nothing could be further from the truth. Their rules are but man-made traditions imposed to compel certain behavior, fear and obedience to the privileged. These traditions have nothing to do with the two commandments Jesus gave us. Loving God and loving others, Matthew, chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. In Mark, chapter 7, verse 8, Jesus said, "You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions." God is traditionally portrayed in organized Christianity and other religions as male. Of course Jesus, the man, is used to support the premise that God is male. Have you ever heard a preacher say "Dear Heavenly Mother"? Genesis, chapter 1, verse 27, "So God created mankind in His own image, in the image of God He created them. Male and female He created them." My point is, religious leaders have by omission and intentional manipulation, impressed countless generations to falsely believe males are spiritually significant, and females are tolerated as necessary for procreation. Perhaps we can blame this divide on the use of gender pronouns when referring to our beloved. After all, our language is sorely inefficient. Half of the population has been unjustly forbidden to fully participate in worshipping God because they are deemed unworthy. Per the Bible reference above, women are clearly made in the image of God just as much as men. Yet, women are still considered to be inadequate to lead worship in some Christian congregations and other religious institutions simply because they are the wrong gender. Of course, in other organized religions women are commanded by tradition to take a seat in the back of the bus, so to speak, if at all allowed to worship with men. Did you know that years ago, young boys and castrated men were only permitted to sing the female choir parts in church as women were strictly forbidden to participate? In some churches, women cannot touch the altar as they are characterized as unclean despite the fact that Jesus touched many deemed unclean women. Let us not forget the unconscionable human burnings at the stakes condoned by religious patriarchs merely because a woman was single, labeled a witch, and had abundant knowledge regarding healing medicinal plants. Somehow, a woman of this description was judged to be harnessing the devil within. The truth is the religious patriarchs, a minority of men, saw such women as a threat to their traditions, power and authority. Thus they had them murdered. Don't get me wrong. I am not bashing men. I am, however, calling out the behavior of the religious patriarchs who have deceived women and men for centuries. Sadly, these men of power and influence still view women as a threat today. They refuse to re-examine their actions in the light, still clinging to the dark traditions despised by Jesus. Misogyny is defined by Oxford Dictionary as dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. Misogyny has its roots in the story of Adam and Eve, specifically religious men blaming Eve for the first sin as if Adam was the victim and had no choice. Nothing could be further from the truth. Misogynistic traditions, many written into the Bible and other sacred compilations, are perpetuated by many religious participants without thought as to the origin of such tradition. The followers, out of fear, just blindly obey as if exclusion was part of Christ's agenda. "It's a man's world" is often retorted as a reason to continue to justify misogynistic traditions that do not reflect Christ-like values. There are hundreds of examples of church-sanctioned abuses. Yes, the Pharisees are still amongst us. I could write on to illustrate convincingly to the skeptics the darkness weaved within religious cultures of all kinds. However, it has already been clearly recorded by history and readily available to open minds. I refer you to refresh and read Matthew, chapter 23, verses 1 through 12. Choose your Bible version. You will be appalled. Christ blasted the Pharisees and scribes, those who controlled information and power over the poor and marginalized. In one example, Jesus states they forcibly threw widowed women into the streets because by traditional, religious patriarchal law, deemed to be God's law, women were useless once the husband died. Jesus did not hold back. He called their behavior hypocritical and wicked. Let us not forget that these very same religious leaders condoned the killing of Jesus as he was a threat to their domain. Their ego minds prevailed. Their choices were made and carried out. Behold the truth. Revelations proclaims organized religion as such will not survive enlightenment. Are you aware of that? The truth is we have all had a hand in perpetuating this darkness. Society has willingly and repeatedly handed over their power and money glorifying those who self-serve at the expense of others. We buy into the idol figure, the all-powerful leader, knowing full well it is not right. Matthew, chapter 24, verses 4 and 5, "Watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and will deceive many." The truth is we are all born into this fallen world and this is how we arrived. Genesis, chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. God said to Adam and Eve, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it you will surely die." The Beloved gave Adam and Eve free will and told them the truth and the consequence of the wrong choice. They believed the dark influence, the serpent, over God's will, and committed wrong choice. They chose to doubt God, they rebelled and then they disobeyed. God, in turn, expelled both of them from the Garden of Eden. I'm sure they felt very abandoned, ashamed, disconnected and unloved. Thus the first original sin, doubt, was cast and the fallen world was created. Does this not seem like a parent-child relationship to you? You tell your 14-year-old son not to drive the family truck for all the obvious safety reasons. However, influenced by his best friend, he doubts your advice, sneaks out and does it anyway. Then you ground him in his room without Xbox until he offers up a heartfelt apology for his rebellion. This seemingly simple scenario resembles the Adam and Eve episode, doesn't it? In a weird way, we all are grounded in this fallen world for our disobedience. The only way out of our room is to apologize with an open heart and ask for forgiveness. Adam and Eve are the starting point of our humanity's family tree, and thus, all the dysfunction. The result is we have all likewise, by proxy, chosen our way over God's will, demonstrated by being born into this realm. Like it or not, that is our heritage. We doubt everything and everyone, including and especially ourselves. Doubting leads to worthiness issues which inevitably are acted out in many forms of darkness. This is a precursor to abuse, manipulation, arrogance, hate, undermining, deceit and wickedness of all kinds. This is an important point to ponder, for it explains why humans behave the way they do. I gladly speak to this and provide specific discussion in the upcoming sections. We have all fallen, sinned by doubting God, by our own free will. We chose our ego mind, our will, over the Beloved's. We are in fact our own worst enemy. There are no exceptions. Romans, chapter 5, verse 12, that is why just as through one man sin entered into the world and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because they had all sinned. It is critical to understand the origin of this fall. With that foundation of knowing, or at a minimum of weighed consideration, we can honestly accept why humans in this world behave the way they do. Every person swayed by darkness is capable of the most horrific deeds. Yet the opposite, swayed by light, is equally true. This comprehension is where healing begins and new life flourishes. It's important to pause and think about this deeply. Ever since the fall, mankind has experienced a gaping emptiness, a spiritual void, and a disconnection that only God can fill. Adam and Eve's decision, doubting God, is the root cause of the unthinkable behaviors we see and hear about every day of our individual lives. Luke, chapter 23, verses 34. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Chapter 6, Choice, and the Real War. The ego of man, the container of spiritual disconnection, versus the loving will of God, is the real war on this earth. The fallen world is the consequence of original choice. It's not about the war on cancer, the war on poverty, the war against radicalism, the war against the rich, or the war against this or that. Let me repeat. The real war is the ego mind of man, the container of disconnection, versus the loving will of our beloved. Take a look around you. Do you see the same undesirable behaviors today that were in play thousands of years ago? The answer is an emphatic yes. Nothing has changed except the names and dates. All darkness can be traced to this truth. I remember Reverend Billy Graham responding to a TV interviewer's question. Paraphrasing, I recall he was asked if there is less darkness in the world today compared to thousands of years past. He unequivocally said no, because we all are born into this fallen world. Never forget that God has given us free will. Thus we are capable of waking up by the grace of God. We can ask for forgiveness and open our hearts and live a life in light, or choose to continue down the path of self-destruction with the ego mind leading the way. The choice is clear for those who are awake. It's not so for those who are not seeing the truth. Wake up. Jesus gave us two clear commands. Love God and love others. It's simple. Love God and love others. Matthew, chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Plainly, this is our mission, our purpose, should we choose to accept it. Yes, I said choose. It boils down to choice. Why is it so hard to commit to loving God and loving others? Love requires a knowing, a spiritual connection, a non-judgmental mind, and an open, receptive, forgiving heart with a keen awareness of our thoughts, intentions, words and actions. Excluding and abusing others requires an ego mindset, a closed, hardened heart, not desiring to be in the light. Marginalizing others is not love, not our purpose. Slaughtering people to avenge wrongs based on religious and political motives is not love, not our purpose. Exploiting others to glorify one's own power is not love, not our purpose. Judging the underserved as not deserving is not love, not our purpose. Preaching fear and damnation is not love, not our purpose. A friend told me a true story about a preacher rejecting his father, then an impressionable young man, out of the local Baptist church simply because he had danced. This young man was ostracized from his small community. Did Jesus say don't dance? Of course he did not. The ego will of the preacher did. Wake up. This is not love. Matthew, chapter 24, verses 4 through 5. Watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. This story had a happy ending though. An older gentleman, a light soul, intervened after the young man confided in him. The older man said, are you going to allow that preacher to stand between you and God? With that clear question, a light turned on in the heart of this young man. He subsequently became a member of another church, sang in the choir and conquered his mental demon. You see, the preacher, much like the serpent in the Adam and Eve story, put out into the young man's mind convincing him he was no longer worthy to be in God's house. Sadly, there are thousands of stories just like this. The real war is man's ego over God's loving will. I can't say that enough. I hope you get the point. I can write an entire book of what's not love, and so can you. Unfortunately, the sad truth is, the justification to go against God's love will show up as the exception. Man's fall appears everywhere in everything and has since the beginning of time. We don't see that connection to love God and love others when we are born into this world. In short order, we forget where we have come from. Chapter 7, The Lie. Mankind's spiritual void drives the fallen world as I have presented. It's like an electric lamp that is ready to receive electricity but has no plug. The source is there but no plug, thus no connection and no light. That is my sense of the fallen human condition. If I intend to stop drinking coffee, but I pour a cup and drink it, I have just lied to myself and sabotaged my intention. There is no mental discipline or willpower. There is darkness in this, a deception to myself. If I tell others I intend not to consume coffee but do anyways, I have created a group lie about myself. I am not sober. I am, in fact, deluding myself, convinced that I have fulfilled my intention by believing my lies or justifying my action. Thus, if organized religion, purporting to condone Christ-like values, continues to reject and manipulate women to subordinate them to an exclusive patriarchal system, the institution is lying. If the government purports peace but takes up dropping bombs, the government is lying. This concept comes not from me. James, chapter 1, verse 26. Those that consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 18. The words of the reckless pierce like swords. The Pharisees stated their intention, turned around and did the opposite action, and then proclaimed they were fulfilling the intention. No one in this world would seriously prefer to live a hellish, dark life. But yet, the religious leaders of today, Pharisees, continue to hold on to their traditions, manifested by their ego minds. If an action does not support an intention to be in the light, it's a lie and cannot be the truth. If it is a lie, it is in darkness. Thus, it's not Christ-like. Why have we not seen through these deceptions? The serious follow-up question is, how can we find our way to put our ego minds aside, plug into our source and take right action to change our lives and the world we share? Jesus took aim and called out the Pharisees, scribes, organized religion and the powerful rulers long ago. And injustices will come to pass as the changes spoken to in Matthew 24 are happening all around us. But as individuals, we have the opportunity by virtue of the grace of God to come home now, to willingly and spiritually connect. Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. We have free will. We can open the heart, ask for forgiveness, receive God's blessings and know the truth. But most of all live and be truth. We are born into this world having already chosen disconnection from God. Suddenly, our experiences begin to shape what we believe whether they are true or not. Have you ever examined why you think this way or that, or what causes you to react negatively or positively or not at all? If you are honest with yourself, you will ultimately discover that you are operating off of many lies. The habit of undermining your soul's desires with lies is a direct result of self-doubt, the ego mind being in control of thoughts and actions. You are in fact soiling yourself. Self-doubting is a direct result of the Adam and Eve choice. Abandonment, fear, worthiness issues are the primary emotions that have been handed down to all of us. Confront your lies and change your thinking patterns. Jesus taught us that, albeit easier said than done. How many men and women set out every day to stop the habit of gambling, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, etc. The intention is to stop the behavior because it is destroying the very fabric of their lives and families. They know it does not serve them, but their brain demands fulfillment of the familiar. The limbic brain and ego mind controls them. Once they choose to continue the same act, the habit, after setting the corrective intention, they undermine their very soul's desire for right action. The ego mind still dominates. Or people may very well not have any awareness of their actions. The hole, the rut as I call it, gets deeper and darker as delusion takes over the mind. It gets more difficult to take right action the more one practices delusion. One only has to watch commercials in between sporting events on TV. Many marketing schemes promote mindlessness. Drink beer and you will have many sexy friends. It makes you feel sexy and popular. Never mind the consequences and carnage of intoxication and the effects on your body and the baby yet to be born. That's not mentioned. The video games that are designed to get your senses and adrenaline glands hooked on blowing up people into bloody unrecognizable pieces, promote fun as shown by the killer's smile on his face. You know, there are so many sick messages we are teaching our children as well as reaffirming in the adults. Sadly, we find it entertaining. Our pleasure, our entertainment has come down to watching someone else's hardship and terror, imagined or not. The consequences, our reactions, are real. We blindly allow our children to engage in countless hours of violence under the disguise of pleasure. Yet, we wonder why violence in society is the norm. You've probably heard the phrase garbage in equals garbage out. Every act begins in the mind. The first original sin, doubt, began in the mind. The ego mind contains a disconnection. What about the habit of watching countless hours of media news, you know, the kind that polarizes and encourages disrespectful discord? Honestly, listen to what your body has to say about that if you can feel it. Do you get angry, rigid and judgmental? Is there nothing good in this world anymore? Do you have trouble sleeping after ingesting such a diet? Your spirit soul knows the truth. Every cell in your body knows the truth. Your ego mind is the deceiver, the naysayer, the devil. You have been fed a bunch of garbage and you believe it. The worst part is that now you have grown an appetite for garbage. The question is, do you care enough to change yourself, repent and stand out from the crowd and stand firm? Matthew 24, verses 11 and 12, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increased wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. There is no doubt that humans program themselves to repeat non-productive and often destructive habits, doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result. Are you on autopilot? Are your thoughts and actions serving you? Yogi Bhajan said it best. The mind becomes a monster when it becomes your master. The mind is an angel when it is your servant. Chapter 8, The Victim and Awareness of the Mind. How do we as individuals know we are deluding ourselves? Let's look at the definition of delusion. Merriam-Webster defines delusion as a persistent false psychotic belief regarding the self or persons or objects outside the self that is maintained despite indisputable evidence to the contrary. Is your life a constant drama or never-ending commotion? There are reasons for that. If you are unsatisfied with an outcome, change the process by changing the mind and your action. The process is nothing but a habit. Habits become ingrained. If you desire a loving, respectful, spiritual relationship, then choose a partner who exhibits those traits. Change your thought pattern. It is not good enough to say the intention is present. Actions must support the intention or it is a lie. How do you do that? Are you finding yourself in abusive relationships? How did you do that? As humans, we are so comfortable with doing the same routines over and over that abuse can make us feel good. Fear of change freezes us. You know it's true. Have you ever noticed people marry over and over, ending up with the same relationship they said they were trying to get away from? Remember, humans do not like change. Change can be very painful. People avoid pain. In many situations, an intervention, be it an illness, accident, confrontation, divorce or other event, is called for because the individual is so delusional, justifying this and that, they refuse to accept any responsibility for their choices. It's always someone else's fault. Yes, I am referring to the victim mentality. The failure to be accountable for our own actions is clearly darkness. A person stuck in this realm has locked the heart and thrown away the key. They refuse to change their thought pattern. Their ego mind is in control. They are consumed with anger. They actually doubt themselves and their reality but may not know it. Playing the victim role is how many people are dealing with their pain. Again, this all started in the beginning with the choice. The ills of society are a direct result of saying no, doubting God. Are you willing to consider that? Are you willing to open the heart, purge the past, examine your thinking and behavior choices and start new? Change your thinking pattern. The grace of God can take you there. Pray and ask for it. Can you do that? Your ego mind must become your angel, not your master. It takes courage to admit you are wrong and that you have abandoned God. You are not a victim, but you are your own worst enemy. It takes courage to change your life right down to the friends you choose or the spouse or partner you are currently with. You see, becoming mindful means being aware of why you are reacting in anger, why you are drinking, and why you want to give up. The reality is, the painful past is not who you are. Are you willing to consider that truth? You have experienced things, no doubt, but that is not who you are. You are not your experience. Think clearly on this. The spirit within is who you are, not the body or mind. You see, we are all in Earth School. It's true. We need the mind and body to move through this life, but we are not our mind or body. What have you learned? If you put your hand in fire, you have just had an experience and learned fire is hot and burns skin. You are not thinking that you are fire, right? So why is it when your father denigrates you over and over, your experiences lead you to believe you are not worthy? Examine that. You have attached yourself to that experience as being who you are. I repeat, you are not the experience. Granted, you had the experience. But you are no more worthless than you are fire. This is the truth. God loves us unconditionally. We are His children. In fact, we are all co-creators. Detaching from experience and inviting in God's love is the only way to shed the victim mentality. Learn from each experience, but it is not who you are. We, in fact, have a fresh slate every breath we take. Anything else has already been. We are all spirits having human experiences on this earth. We are evolving. This is Earth School. It puts it into perspective for me. The body is the vehicle that moves us through the life so that we can experience for the sake of acquired wisdom, ultimately by the grace of God leading us to connect to the Beloved. Once we do that, we become servants to God by loving God and loving others as ourselves. Chapter 9, Confidence or Arrogance. Most of us have been taught that arrogance is not a desirable trait since it inevitably marginalizes and abuses others. Arrogance condones the less than treatment of our brothers and sisters. Arrogance is a power trip. Thus the ego mind and arrogance go hand in hand. Arrogance draws on the disconnection of our spiritual source. This is important to understand. A wise friend told me a true story of two builders who were members of the same church. The church hired both men to build a needed expansion onto the existing structure. These two men had completely different ideas as to how to go about the build. In fact, they were so entrenched in their positions, they were gridlocked. They notified the pastor of their lack of progress, each blaming the other for the excessive delay. The pastor led them into his office and said, "I am leaving and closing the door behind me. Do not come out of this office until you come to an agreement." The men continued to bicker and finger-point for over an hour with no resolve. The pastor, concerned that no movement forward had been made, opened the door. While accusing each other, the men again told the pastor that no progress had been made. The pastor, not settling for that answer, asked both men to deeply consider this one question: "Who are you serving?" And with that, he left and closed the door behind him. The two men looked at each other sheepishly, surprised at what the pastor had asked. They jointly put their arrogance aside and chose to yield to serving God. They came to a workable plan immediately. I have read that some religions put confidence, positive self-esteem into the arrogance camp. Nothing could be further from the truth. The disconnection of God caused by doubt manifests the worthiness self-doubt issues, which in turn sets the arrogance, via the ego mind, in motion. What is confidence then? Confidence comes from knowing we are connected to and serving our Beloved. This is worth repeating. The knowing of this connection facilitates positive self-esteem. Confidence shines heart light and allows the source to flow through us to others. Chapter 10, Waking Up to Christ-like Conscious Living. From my own personal experiences, practicing yoga of awareness, meditation and prayer, along with learning from relationships, various philosophies, Bible studies and just living life, I have arrived at this place of my understanding by the grace of God. My caveat is Proverbs 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Every morning before I begin my day, I enjoy reading the one-page devotional from the inspired book, Jesus Callings. I highly recommend this divinely inspired book to anyone seeking to hear the Beloved speaking directly to them. Your reaction and contemplation to the reading can immediately disclose to you where you are in your heart and mind. This habit is like tuning up an instrument before you play it. You are in fact tuning up your mind and heart to put your day into proper perspective. Pray, meditate, take up yoga, walk, listen to or play music, read scripture, or do whatever it takes to mindfully connect to God after you rise. With every light intention followed up with light action, you are proclaiming your desire to connect to and serve God. Do you say you have no time? You are already undermining your desire for change, justifying why you won't. That's the demon. Just do it. Direct the mind to serve you, not the other way around. The ego mind is always looking for that opportunity to kick the door wide open and control you. All meditation trains the mind to be aware of this. The spirit soul simply cannot shine when the delusion of the ego mind becomes your master. The ego mind, container of doubt, sits and waits for opportunities to infiltrate your thinking, ultimately trying to steer you into doubt and fear. Awareness trains your mind to be on guard to the ever-present master manipulator, your ego mind. The ego mind is your doubter, your committee, your naysayer, your demon, your first original sin. The truth is, the ego mind contains the origin of dysfunction. Once you shift your habits by altering your thinking patterns and action, you will be amazed at the changes that will happen in your life. What are you thinking? What are your reactions? Why are you reacting that way? Can you discern the differences? The good news is that you can choose to wake up and elevate yourself to a new you. Yes, it is your choice. You have that power. Ask God. God is everywhere waiting for you to invite her into your heart. Pray. Surrender. Apologize to the beloved for your ineptness. Forgive them for they know not what they do. Truthfully, transformation requires hard work, discipline and caliber which in many cases are counter to the culture that we live in. Waking up is challenging. It requires a heart-filled desire to surrender and connect to the beloved, to do God's loving will, with every thought and action we take. To put your uneasiness into perspective, can you imagine what it must have been like for Jesus to walk his path? It helps to know that there is more to life than what we see. Do you know that? Do you feel it? Are you confident? There is a bigger picture in play composed by our Creator. Can you be humble and have faith without knowing all the details? Do you see the weaving synchronicities in your life and others? There are no coincidences. We are all connected. Can you see beyond your own self-imposed limits? Can you see infinity? Do you know where you have come from and where you are going? Jesus did. When you think or say negative doubtful thoughts or words, immediately recognize them from whence they came. Does downgrading others make you feel better about yourself? Be constantly aware of your thoughts. Are you belittling yourself? Do your thoughts support light or darkness? Do your actions reflect your intentions? Monitor at all times your responses. Pause before you answer. This requires an observer-like awareness within you. Thoughts and words are very powerful. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Consciously choose to change your habits, meditate and pray. Ask for God's guidance. Listen within. Know the divine is always with you regardless of your expectations and outcomes. Know that you receive what you need and not necessarily what you desire. This requires mental discipline just as if you were in the gym sculpting a new body. Restate those unproductive thoughts or words differently to reflect the truth. For example, if you state, "You are a terrible golfer," you have just convinced your mind and body down to the cellular level. Cells have memory that you, the person, are no good. You are deliberately undermining your self-esteem by feeding self-doubt. How does that feel? You have created a corrosive habit. Sound familiar? We all do this. Behold, this is your demon. I assure you no successful golfer participates in this thinking pattern. Speak kindly about yourself. Laugh. There is no need to doubt your potential. However, your potential will never manifest by feeding yourself toxic words. The truth is you have limitless potential. Do you remember where doubt comes from? You can choose to connect to the divine. Remember, we only need to accomplish these two actions. Love God and love others. Loving others also includes you. Are you undermining yourself, yielding to the wishes of others so that you will be liked? A lot of women can relate to this. If you are experiencing self-doubt, poor self-esteem issues that ultimately leads to poor choices. Self-improvement is rooted in self-acceptance, self-love. Think of yourself as God's child, because you are. How loving, special and beautiful is that? You're divine. It's the truth. The Beloved has never abandoned us. We disconnected. It is never too late, nor are you ever too old to change and open your heart. Remember this. Because of the increased wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. That's God's promise to us all. It is our choice though. God has given us free will. All we have is right now. The past is gone. The future not even here, nor is it ours to see. Challenge yourself to live as if today is your last day by loving God and loving others. Matthew 24, The Olivet Prophecy. Chapter 11, The Practice. This quote bears repeating from the acclaimed poet, Rumi. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself. As I stated in the preface, my intention in writing this guide is to encourage seekers to overcome their own darkness by seeing the truth of their existence. I have provided food for thought and suggestions as to how we can mindfully move out of spiritual disconnection. Clearly, because of the fall, there are many challenges and choices which go against the reality we have created. Christ-like conscious living starts with each one of us. The truth is, God loves you no matter where you are in your life, and what you have done. After all, you are here in this realm, your room to facilitate your personal growth. Likewise, you are also facilitating the growth of others. Be grateful, love God and love others. The rest is God's plan. Have comfort in knowing that you are the beloved's divine child. It's the truth. Release any cultural belief systems that puts doubt and fear in your mind about who you really are. Listen to this carefully. Release any cultural belief systems that puts doubt and fear in your mind about who you really are. I realize that there are many concepts within these writings that may be very foreign, idealistic and even radical to some. Thus I have written the following in an attempt to emphasize important practices that may help seekers break out of disconnect thinking patterns, thereby breaking undermining habits and forming new ones that will serve them in the light. Again, breaking habits are not for the faint-hearted. We all have unproductive habits. All of us have it within us to discern and change our life for the better. How do we break the habits which do not serve our spiritual growth? Let me ask, how many of you are interested in playing a musical instrument or sport you enjoyed? You had intention to play well, followed up by action. The common theme to hone your skills was practice, practice, and more practice. Spiritual evolution, connecting back to source, is no different. We have in fact acquired bad habits. Remember, the root cause of undermining is doubt, the first original sin. Humans were born with that blueprint. It's important to always keep that in mind. The only way to live in the light with truth is to open your heart and ask for forgiveness. Be grateful for all your experiences, even the most painful ones, for they teach you, if you are open, to understanding. The mindfulness of changing our patterns of habit, starting with our thinking patterns, can be difficult. How do you start a practice towards a changed life? Monitor your responses in that very moment. After all, you can control your reaction if you are mindful about what button of yours you have just allowed to be pushed. Examine your mental inventory from whence they come. Clarity brings enlightenment. Laugh when your child accidentally spills milk. Your child will laugh with you. What does anger and scolding accomplish? Laugh at yourself for thinking about reacting in anger. It's only spilled milk, not the experience you had as a child. You can pass on your emotional baggage or stop it in its tracks. It's your choice. It's healthy to laugh and not take ourselves so seriously. Joan Rivers, a famous female comedian, was quoted as saying, "I was making jokes yesterday at the funeral home. That's how I get through life. Life is so difficult. Everybody's been through something. But you laugh at it, it becomes smaller." Laughter is indeed good medicine. Science has proved that. I urge you to practice laughing not at someone else's expense, but knowing we are all capable of human follies. Below is what I have labeled the 7 keys, more like heavenly boot camp. These keys, when practiced, bring to light the characteristics of a Christ-like conscious life. God never intended for us to shrink or live in the shadows. Practicing daily will not only change your life, but those around you as well. It's time to reprogram our minds. 1. Doubt, the original sin, is the root cause of our spiritual disconnection from the Beloved, and the origin of the fallen world. If you feel worthless, arrogant, angry or need to have power and control over others, the disconnection is present. Indeed, you are a servant to your ego mind. Consciously change your thinking patterns and follow through with aligned action. 2. Be accountable for your own intentions, actions and thought patterns through self-awareness practices. You are not a victim. Speak kindly to yourself and others. Empower yourself in all you do. Serve others to inspire your gratitude. This will remove self-pity and a victim mentality. 3. Pray, meditate, be grateful every day even though you may be experiencing growth through uncomfortable situations. See and feel the beauty in this world. Give praise and gratitude every day to our Beloved. 4. Smile as if you see God in front of you. After all, we are all God's children. 5. Open your heart and receive grace. God loves you unconditionally and has never abandoned you. Be compassionate. 6. Know you are worthy no matter what you have done. Remember, you are not your experience. You are in Earth School. 7. Give God, our Beloved, in all you think and do by loving God and loving others including yourself. If you desire positive, uplifting change in your life, I strongly suggest practicing the 7 keys. Take yoga, walk, exercise of your choice, participate in Bible studies, listen to uplifting music, pray and meditate. Get outside and be refreshed through nature. Buy a journal and write daily if possible. Seek out and read spiritual transformative information. Reread the 7 keys and refresh with the content of the book as needed. Describe your thoughts and actions today with a like-minded friend. Your friends and enemies are your mirrors. Learn from them. Do your actions reflect the keys above? If your answer is no, pull back the layers and realize doubt, the first original sin, is behind it all. It's true. Take comfort in knowing that. Take action to discern that which does not serve you. Remember, changing habits is a process that requires ongoing daily practice and patience. Do you hear the words you are using? Pause and think before you say them. Write down your positive changes. Write how they make you feel. Strengthen your connection every day by praying and/or meditating. Find the quiet place and time to commune with the Beloved. Practice every day. Be kind and do not judge yourself if you mindlessly forget or become overwhelmed by life's circumstances. Flogging is not allowed. The reality is we are not perfect. Laugh. Love. Be aware of all the synchronicities happening around you and feel the presence of the divine working through you. Try to see others through God's eyes. Share a prayer with your family and friends over a meal no matter where you are eating. Be grateful for the abundance in your life. You have much more than you realize. Do you feel worthy enough to receive it? Feel the confidence of knowing, have faith, stand firm, and try to remember where you have come from and where you are going. Through daily devoted practice, you will develop strong caliber and character. Your life and those around you will be forever changed for the good of all. Chapter 12 Destiny. There are as many spiritual paths as there are men and women who have come and gone since the beginning of time. Indeed, there are thousands of inspirational self-help books which promote how we can better ourselves and humanity. The difference is in the ease of living, of accepting the cause of the fallen world and knowing without doubt, we can discern differently. Healing begins here. Matthew 4, verse 17, Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Did you know doubt, the first original sin, has already been forgiven by the Beloved? Daniel 9, verse 9, but the Lord our God is merciful and forgiving even though we have rebelled against Him. We are God's children. We can immediately choose to stop our rebellion, change our hearts, minds, and actions, or we can arrogantly continue to lie to ourselves and aimlessly live life in darkness. I pray you have the courage to know your truth and ask for healing. Yes, it takes a lot of courage to admit you need help. We all need help. This is my testimony. I vividly remember surrendering, more accurately described as breaking down, while accomplishing my daily meditation and praying. I didn't expect or plan for what had transpired. I did, however, have an open, loving, inviting heart. Grace came as if an active volcano was ready to erupt within and without my knowledge. My repentance welled up inside of me and I released every bit of it to God. I purged, I apologized for my ineptness, and I sobbed and wept for hours in solitude on the floor of my bedroom as if I was sitting face to face with my Maker. The unconditional love I felt was overwhelming and beyond my ability to express in mere words. I realized that my rebellion had kept me away from my destiny, my reunion with the Beloved. We all live in this broken world, but there are awakenings that are happening every second, every minute, and every hour of the day. The truth is your destiny, waking up, comes down to your decision alone. Once you commit your heart to God's unconditional loving will, you are lifted up as if you had wings and fly high above the insanities of this fallen reality. Having personally experienced sweet moments of oneness with God, I pray we all have the comfort of knowing that the Beloved is patiently waiting to hear from each and every one of us, for the kingdom of heaven is truly at hand. About the author. Kathleen Nelson, born in Weston, New York, received a grant from and studied music, arts and education at the University of Kentucky at Lexington. She subsequently married, moved and had a family in Austin, Texas. Years later, Kathleen acquired a position with the Internal Revenue Service where she ultimately became and retired as a tax collector. Kathleen, Kat Nelson, is also an accomplished singer-songwriter. She has previously performed at many live venues in Austin, Texas, the music capital of the world, including the Austin International Airport, Capitol 10,000 runs, many radio stations and numerous local live music establishments. Kathleen wrote and recorded Find Your Way, consisting of 12 original songs to commemorate her previously passed parents. Shortly after that recording, she was diagnosed with an immune system deficiency, peripheral imbalances, caused by mercury poisoning from silver amalgam dental fillings that she received at 13 years of age. Personally, consciously and spiritually motivated, Kathleen testified at the Federal Drug Administration hearing in a collaborate effort to ban the neurotoxic mercury dental fillings in the United States. Her testimony is a matter of public record in the Federal Register. Amazingly, mercury dental fillings are still in use today, even though many other countries have banned it. Kathleen currently sings in the church choir as her way to express her heartfelt gratitude to God. As her book reflects, she has been inspired by experiencing life and listening within, daring to seek, question, and proclaim the truth of mankind's disconnected ways. She is not a religious scholar. In fact, Kathleen believes the study of religion is not synonymous with the spiritual connection to the divine, which tends to promote the ego mind of man, investigating and interpreting theories of religious history, the devil in the details, over being an example of living a Christ-like conscious life. Kathleen authored her first book, Truth, The Path to Christ-like Conscious Living, to shine light on the origin of all dysfunctional human behavior, and to assist the longing to find their way to connect to God's love.